Hey, what's going on, folks? Larry Packmaster's Dog Training. I want to try to answer a bunch of questions. I've posted a few videos in the past couple of days working with some human aggressive dogs and showing a little bit of the use of the dominant dog collar and things like that. Well, my inbox has been blown up, not because of the tool, but more questions about handling human aggressive dogs, okay? So I'm just going to try to touch on it a little more detail about what I do. Okay, this doesn't mean that you have to do it, or it's not the only way, the right way, the best way. People want to know what I do. Okay, so the one thing is, the videos I post, you guys get to see the work. There's no before, there's no afters. You see all the good, all the bad. You see all the ugly, all the conflict, all the fighting. You got to see it all. If you haven't, full videos from all that stuff is on my YouTube channel. The more videos you get out there, the harder it is for people to find things. And I've talked about this stuff extensively. So I hate doing it all over again, but I'm going to give you some examples just for the people who haven't seen that stuff and have the questions, okay? So if you guys watch the video, it's an old video, probably one of my first videos with Kesey, the pit bull mix. You know, that dog was very, very human aggressive. Like, he was pretty bad. He really was. And that was tough. Back then, I only did 3 private lessons. With those people, it was the first dog I ever told the owners where I said, I don't know if I can do it. You know, I don't know if it's going to work, but I'll try. I'll give you my best. And I'll do it as long as we have to, meaning I'll do as many lessons as we have to. Well, I posted a lot of that work. There is a video of the first lesson and the last lesson and the group lesson in there. And what had happened was that dog completely changed around by the 3 lessons. And so at the end, he wasn't just avoiding the contact and the conflict and the aggression. You know, he turned out to be a really happy-go-lucky, you know, stress-free dog. It turned out great. But that dog took its toll on me, because at that time, you know, that was probably 10, 11, 12 years ago, I don't know. I basically was only working with dogs like that, and it got exhausting. Physically and mentally, I was drained. And I don't handle dogs like that. As a lot of you know, I do everything hands off. And the way that happened is the very next client that called me after that dog, I show up, it's a young couple. They have some mixed breed dog that was extremely human aggressive and dog aggressive. You got the best of both. And so I show up to talk to the people in the first lesson, and I couldn't even talk to them because the dog was just going crazy trying to get to me. I asked them to put the dog in the apartment. And that was the other thing. They lived in an apartment complex. So it was constant contact with people and dogs. And they were getting ready to move out of state. And so time was of the essence here. And so we talked, I got all the feedback, and the first thing I did was, I didn't have a lot of time, so I conditioned the owners to the e-collar, right? I taught them all that stuff. They were the dogs, I was the handler, and then I was the dog. I did a lot of that before we ever worked with the dog. And in that first lesson, we started conditioning the dog with the e-collar. There was a tennis court there. And I didn't want to handle this dog. I was exhausted. I said, take the dog in there. I kept the remote. And it was the first time. Now I've written about it and I talk about it. I call it hands-off, no conflict aggression training. So now all human aggressive dogs, I do hands-off. I don't handle them till normally the 3rd lesson. And so we did all the conditioning without me ever touching the dog. These people were in a tennis court. I was outside the fence. And what that provided was, there was no stress on the dog, and we could focus on the training. And it went very, very well. It really did. It really went well. And so I guess the 2nd lesson I show up, we basically do the same thing, but now outside of the tennis court. And we started adding more stuff, like at that time I was doing with all dogs. Again, it went very well. I think I got the time frame right, but I could be wrong. Now it was time to the next lesson to introduce a dog. Okay. I had Bruno at the time. I show up at their apartment with Bruno. It's nighttime and it is completely pouring out. I mean, just raining as hard as it could rain in Tennessee, which is pretty hard. And so we had no choice but to find cover. And the only place we could do this was in a stairwell and in a little alley of the apartment complex. Not the best place to train a dog, but sometimes you have to do what you have to do, as a lot of trainers know. And so what I did at this point, there was no obedience, no e-collar stuff. It was just me and Bruno working together trying to help this dog accept my dog. And so I put the owner and the dog at the end of the stairwell, the little alleyway, okay, against the wall. Kind of in the dark too, so again, not the best place. And what I would do is I would start approaching the dog. I've done this at workshops. I've talked about it. I've shown people many times. Look, I'm not big on techniques and methods. It's not my thing. But in this case, there are a couple of techniques that I use extensively with human aggressive dogs as part of an overall program that work extremely effectively. And I've shown it right on the spot to a lot of people at workshops. And so with them at the end of a stairway, I would approach with Bruno. And the handler's job, the owner's job, was to do nothing. That's what I instruct. You do nothing. You don't talk to the dog. There's no corrections. There's no nothing. You let me do all the work. And so as I'm approaching with Bruno, the dog is watching. And then it's my job, just as the dog gets to its highest level of stress before it blows up, I stop and I wait. And the second the dog gives me some kind of calming signal, looks away, looks down at the ground, looks up at the owner, I turn around and I walk away. Okay? So that dog taking its fixation off of us creates the stressor, us going away. And then I get back to the beginning, I wait, and I do it again. This time, almost always, you're getting a little closer to the dog. And I wait. When the dog looks away or up at its owner, I go away, me and Bruno go away back to the start. All right? Now, normally, if we just do that method, almost always within a half hour, you're standing next to each other, without incident. Almost always. Very effective. But instead of doing that, once I started getting close, the dog was doing very well. We're getting very close. Now I switched it up. Now what I told the owner, the dog hadn't eaten yet today. I told the owner, as soon as I appear, start dropping food. Okay? And that's what he did. And I said, when I walk away, stop dropping food. That's what he did. And each time I would appear, food would fall. After a few repetitions, as soon as I would appear, before the owner could drop food, the dog was starting to look at him, making eye contact, waiting for the food. Now the mind is starting to change a little bit, all right? By the end of that lesson, that hour lesson, I don't know how long it took to accomplish all this, we were standing next to each other talking, and the dog was fine, doing very, very well, okay? I still have never handled the dog. We ended the lesson. Things went very well. Not the best place to train a dog, but you do what you do. So that worked very effectively, combined with the work we've done up until that point. Now, that weekend or the following weekend, we did 2 or 3 lessons with that dog. I can't remember what it was off the top of my head, but I've written about it so you can read about it. We're having a group class on a Saturday morning down in Nashville. A lot of people there. Remember, I still haven't touched this dog. There's a couple of videos on my YouTube channel that will make no sense to people, and they're really badly filmed with a phone. But the reason I didn't film them, the owner of this dog did, and the reason why is this. As I was on one knee in the group class talking to the group didn't know anything about this dog, except when we got there I said, no one pay attention to this dog, no one approach this dog, everyone stay away. While I was speaking, in the middle of me talking, I talk a lot, as you guys can tell, the dog started pulling the owner toward me, kind of in a happy fashion, and she kind of went with it. And the dog came up on me and started loving on me and licking me and giving me a lot of attention. And the owner at that moment started just crying. And she started filming with her phone at that moment because she couldn't believe it. The people in the group class never knew that I never touched that dog. I think I tell them on that spot. So what you guys don't understand about this dog, here is the situation. I've never touched this dog. Now, people will say, well, does it work for, was the dog accepting with other people? The next video that this lady posted that I put on my YouTube channel, they were moving, like I said, and they have movers. strange men in their house moving their furniture, and she's telling them about this dog. Like, you guys don't understand. Last week, you guys wouldn't be able to come in here. And the dog's just hanging out, walking around. So everything we did, hands off, was very, very effective and completely turned this dog around. And this dog was tough, you know. That was the first dog that I used the hands-off, no conflict method that I talk about all the time. Worked very well. So when I got my next human aggressive dog, which I used to get a lot of them, I said, you know what, maybe that was just a fluke. Let me try it again. So I did the first 2 lessons, very human aggressive dog, right? First 2 lessons I do, and everything went well. Hands off, I don't touch the dog. Third lesson is going to be my attempt to handle this dog, and I did without incident, and the dog was fine. And I'm like, damn, you know, this is 2 dogs in a row. This has worked really well. I'm going to have to stick with this and see how it worked out. Well, what happened was every dog I worked after that, it worked very well. I no longer handle the dogs when we're at a high level of stress and conflict. And usually by the 3rd lesson, everything was fine. And, you know, that's a really, really big change from the way I used to do things, very hands-on. And so then you guys saw the video with Bear, the German Shepherd, yesterday that, you know, attacked me. And I say he got me through the muzzle. He bit me down the side of my torso, right through the muscle. I don't know how that happened. Ripped my shirt up. So I explained to people in there, that was the 3rd lesson. And I tell people, today I'm going to attempt to handle this dog. And, you know, there's 2 things that's going to happen. He's either going to hide because it's all a big front, or he's going to try to kill me. Normally, they try to hide. They don't want to face their fears, and it's almost always out of fear. Well, this was the first dog that chose to try to kill me instead. You know, he was like, no, I'm going to take you out. But at least people will get to see that because I showed everything. I didn't hide anything, and I showed the whole lesson. Now, with that being said, in that video, the first thing you see the owner say is, should I use the shock collar when he starts blowing it? Right in the beginning, I said, no, put it away. That's not what I do. That's not going to be effective, especially long-term. It's just not. It's not. It takes a lot more than that. And that's why so many fail with human aggressive dogs. If you notice, after me and him got into it real good, I hand the dog back and then we go back to training. And you see a dog that's a lot more relaxed. Not perfect, but a lot more relaxed. And then we switch to play. The ball comes out and we're doing different things. Then we go on a nice structured walk. You know, the dog was pretty relaxed. So we throw different things at him. I never do one thing. But normally I never address the issue. Like if aggression or dog aggression is the issue, I don't face that. I do everything up front before I ever give the dog an opportunity to do that. It just so happened that one dog was the first dog on lesson 3, wasn't ready. Looking back on it, if I knew that was going to be his reaction, I would have done a few more private lessons before I did that. You also see the dog at the end, we're working him with the people going by on the golf cart. Little things like that make a big difference. So when the dog gave us a relaxed state and didn't blow up at the people coming by, we mark it, now we play, and you see how the dog is fired up. I also talk about in the video how this dog used to have toys all over the house. They had no meaning. I told him, you got to put them away because we got to use this toy's play drive, this dog's prey drive and play drive, because the dog, that's what he's meant to do. That's what he likes. But if he always has access to that stuff, it's no longer very important. And the reason that dog became like that, guys, is he wasn't always like that. He trusted people, and then one day he trusted the wrong person off leash, and the guy shot him, and he lived. After that, he decided he was going to kill anyone who came near him because the last person that came near him shot him and hurt him bad. That's a problem. You know what I mean? And so when people ask, well, why didn't you just light him up with the e-collar when he blew up? That's what the dog was expecting. He was expecting to receive more pain when he was in that heightened state of fear. And that's really what it is. And if I would have done that, then he's justified in what he's doing. But when I didn't give that to him when we were battling and he's trying to get me, when nothing bad happened to him after that and I gave it back to him, that dog just changed. And so I can't give you the exact reason why for everything. But the very next weekend, the issue those people were having is that young couple was going to get married the following weekend. And they had to find a place to board that dog that had the guillotine style, kennels, so no one had to touch him. Well, he found a place down in Tennessee. And on his honeymoon up in Vermont, he calls me and he goes, man, I just talked to the place boarding bear. He's like, you're not going to believe this. He said, but they're handling him. They're handling him like with no problems. I'm like, wow, that's great. And he said, how is that possible? And I told him, I said, I can't give you an exact answer, but I do think that the battle that we had made a big difference, because he was able to see something a little bit different from what he's used to and what he was expecting, And when he went to pick that dog up, they walked him out on a leash, no muzzle, no problems, and he was fine. And he did really well after that. That guy told me there were times he'd be walking that dog down the street and a neighbor's dog came running up after him. He listened to what the guy said. He was fine, One of the reasons I took the dog that day and handled him, because the dog was doing really well after the first couple lessons, and sometimes owners get a little complacent and think everything is good. So I had to show them what can happen if they drop their guard and think everything's good. So that was very, very effective there, okay? So I don't board and train human aggressive dogs. I don't do it. The reason I don't do it is there's too much conflict. I never want to keep a dog in a muzzle for a long period at a time. I don't like it. It's not my thing. And in my opinion, I think for a human aggressive dog to truly change, and I look at long term, not short term. I want the dog to be fine 5 years down the road. And in my opinion, for the dog to truly change, it has to come from the owners. And so at that point, yeah, I train the dog, but I'm more of a coach and an educator. And if I can't teach the owners what needs to be done for long-term success, then that dog doesn't stand a chance. But that's just the way I do things, okay? But I've been really, really successful with dogs like that long-term. Short-term means nothing, guys. Short-term means nothing, okay? I give you another example. And I wasn't going to talk about this, and I don't use names or anything, but there was a dog here not a while ago that I dealt with in town. Young dog. The owners, nah, you know what? I'm not even going to talk about it. It's not worth it. But sometimes people let their egos get in the way, And there was a time I did for sure, And I know a lot of people say, I come across as very brash and arrogant in some of these videos. I'm honestly not. I'm really not. But I do care about what goes on in the industry and with the animals, as we know from the past few days. But I'm not even going to touch on that. And so I've done it for a long time, but I've had really good success with a lot of really bad dogs, like really bad dogs. And it took a lot of mistakes and experience to learn what works the best. Now, with that being said, I hope 5 years from now, I find a better way where it's even less. But once I started realizing that when I handle these dogs, if I can get it done with less conflict, it goes faster and it goes better, okay? Now, I've had trainers call me before. One trainer I could think of, I'm not going to say his name because I don't want to embarrass him, but great dude, great trainer. Hasn't been training dogs real long. He called me. He's like, look, I got this shepherd, human aggressive. They want me to train him. He goes, I'm not ready for that. I can't do it. And I said, yeah, I think you can. I think you can. Let me help you from long distance. We'll talk, but I know you can do it because I did believe he could. He's fantastic at what he does. But the reason why I knew he could do it is there's no ego there. The guy truly cares about doing what's right. And so I had him do this hands-off thing with this dog. He did everything I asked and everything he knows. And it wasn't long before he's posting videos of him and this dog having a good old time. And he was blown away. Like he told me, he said, I am absolutely amazed in the change in this dog by doing it this way. And I was unbelievably proud of him because I knew he can do it. But people just have to be shown a different way, a better way. And I, out of all the things I've done, and I've trained a lot of truly human aggressive dogs, for a long time, Once I stopped handling them up front, guys, everything got better, and the success rate, even though the success rate was fantastic before, there was a lot of conflict and a lot of stress on me and the dog. And it's what caused me to take a whole year off. I quit dog training for a year because I was exhausted. I only worked with shitty dogs because that's what people thought I did. So no one brought me the happy golden retriever just to teach a recall or basic obedience. And that got old. Okay, so I'm fortunate now that I get to work with all kinds of dogs. But when it comes to the human aggressive dogs, keep your hands off them. Do 2, 3, 4, 5 lessons without ever touching them, and you're going to see a tremendous difference. And with that being said, for you trainers that think you have to take aggressive dogs, you don't. For those trainers that don't take aggressive dogs and feel bad about it, don't. You're smart. They don't pay any more money. I don't make more money off a bad dog. I take all the risks, and it's the same amount of money, and it's a lot of stress. So now if I get called for a dog I really don't look forward to dealing with, I don't take it. I don't want it because there's nothing to prove. And the reason I took every dog at that time, it was all ego. I wanted to show everyone I could fix this dog. It was 100% ego, you know, but it was the best education I ever received in dog training also was from those dogs. You know, those dogs and the really fearful dogs, those are the dogs that teach you the most. So I hope this explains a little more. Hands off, no conflict, aggression training. If you want to hear more about it, I can, but that combined with like the couple of techniques I talked about the dog in the stairwell with, you got to understand, guys, I never do just one thing when it comes to working a dog. Never. There is no one best way. If you could use 10 different ways to teach the same thing, the dog's going to benefit from it a lot more. Trust me, that I can guarantee you, okay? So I'm sure I forgot to say a few things. Lighting a dog up with any kind of a tool to try to stop aggression, it doesn't work. If it did, that's what I would do, but it doesn't work. But I've shown you guys. I don't just talk about it, okay? So there's people that hate my guts. I show it. It's not always right. I'm definitely not always right. I make as many mistakes, if not more, than everyone. But one of the most powerful things about videos, guys, is I get to go in and look at this stuff, okay? And I've never watched one of my own videos where I don't see a ton of mistakes. I make a ton of mistakes in every videos. Videos are hard to make because you know the camera's there and everything kind of changes a little, you know? So I hope this helps. It's long, but people ask and I'm trying to tell. So if you guys have any questions, put them right in here and I'll do the best I can, okay? Hopefully this is a better week for everyone, less conflict. And you know, it's kind of shitty what's going on in the dog industry right now, and I've taken part in it, a lot of us have, but I think it's necessary to a certain extent to make things better and move things forward. And hopefully pretty soon everyone can sit down and talk and figure something out. Okay, peace.